This year has been absolute mayhem. We kicked the year off recovering from the SolarWinds attack, and at the time, we thought that was one of the biggest cyber attacks we were gonna see. And to that point, that was true. However, 2021 had some absolutely nasty surprises in store, and it underpinned a lesson that everyone watching this video should walk away with. Now, before we dive in, we've talked about every single one of these attacks on this channel already, so if you want more analysis on each attack, you can find those videos in the playlist linked below, or you can wait until the end of this video and I'll send you right there. So let's rewind to December of 2020. News was breaking about SolarWinds, and this leaked obviously straight into January of 2021 this year. Now, although the breach took place in 2020, I'm mentioning it in this video reviewing 2021 because a lot of the work and a lot of the fallout took place this year. It also carried through the year with a number of smaller incidents. Now, why was this attack significant? If you're not already familiar with the SolarWinds attack, this was kind of indicative of a change in attack methodology, hitting basically elements of the supply chain. SolarWinds, the company, provides a management platform called Orion. And Orion allows for basically companies and other entities to be able to gain insight and control and visibility throughout their network. Sounds like something an attacker would want to get their hands on, right? Well, it was a library in this program that was corrupted by adversaries, and that was subsequently pushed out to clients of SolarWinds. So now clients of SolarWinds are having to worry about a breach because a vendor that they relied on got breached. Now, at this point, a lesson for a lot of organizations from that was that not only do you have to look at, the price point, the capabilities of software and so forth, you also have to look at the security practices of the vendor, because of course they're going to be pushing out software updates, and they might even provide some sort of managed service. So, if you're relying on that for your organization and your network, that might be something that you have to pay attention to. Now, that was a pretty big cyber attack, but a very consequential, in my opinion, cyber attack that happened this year was the Colonial pipeline attack. This is a whole other nightmare that, unfortunately, in my opinion, I don't think that we've seen the last of this kind of attack. Now, some background here. Colonial operates a number of pipelines across the US East Coast, and whenever this cyber attack happened, attackers were able to breach corporate systems, but they did not breach any of the SCADA or, command and control systems for the actual pipelines themselves. It was a precaution by Colonial to prevent the spread of the ransomware, to shut off the systems that controlled the pipeline, thereby shutting the flow of gasoline across the US East Coast. Now, this impacted, as you can imagine, a lot of people. I remember I needed to fill up gas that week, and it was a pain in the butt, waiting for a station to have fuel so I could go fill up my gas tank. So thanks, hackers. I appreciate that. The group known as DarkSide also included a ransomware that they called the DarkSide ransomware. Now, to my knowledge, I didn't see any other instances of DarkSide doing anything huge this year. I might have very clearly missed that. So if you've heard of DarkSide doing any other cyber attacks this year, drop a link to the news story below. Now, the reason I say that this is nasty is because this was an attack on what is considered critical infrastructure. Even if they didn't intend for this to be an attack on critical infrastructure, then their lack of due diligence led to this being an attack on critical infrastructure, because the flow of oil must continue. And especially whenever, consumers and commercial and even government assets across the coast are having a hard time trying to fill up their gas tank, that's going to cause a lot of problems. Now you're not only involving law enforcement, at a local or even a federal level that are trying to, remediate the ransomware problem, they're going to consider this a security threat to the country as a whole. And in some instances, an attack on critical infrastructure can lead to bodily harm or death. So the threat is real. So we've already mentioned the DarkSide ransomware group, but another ransomware group that gained significant notoriety this year and had a pretty rapid rise and a pretty rapid fall was the Revil ransomware group. And you might have heard of this group through the Kaseya ransomware attack. Kaseya is a managed service provider. So again, this is targeting a link in the supply chain, impacting downstream clients. Though the scope potentially was huge, the impact, at least at this point, appears to have been pretty limited. Now let's talk about Revil. Revil was, however you want to consider it, a Russian-based ransomware threat actor group. They were also known for the JBS Foods ransomware attack this year. which was also in and of itself a pretty large cyber attack. They made out with over $11 million in that cyber attack, and that's considered to be one of the largest, if not the largest, ransomware payments in history. Now, don't think that that ends in, fluffy unicorns and good happy days for the ransomware group. They drew the attention of the US government and several other governments for that event. And even though they live in Russia, it doesn't appear that they exist anymore. So we'll leave it at that. The next massive cyber attack that happened this year was the Twitch data dump. In October, 125 gigabytes of data was dumped from Twitch, and the attacker was claiming to attempt to disrupt the streaming platform service in the industry as a whole. And that they did, or especially whenever people were able to see how much money Twitch streamers were making. A lot of money. A lot of money. This was a pretty thorough breach of Twitch. Not only did they dump, streamer payouts, they also dumped the actual source code of Twitch. They dumped the concept code and dev code for Amazon's basically competitor for Steam. They also dumped, in many cases, user credentials, although that report has been contested. In some cases, people have seen user credentials in the dump. In other cases, user credentials haven't been seen. So, probably change your password just to be safe. But still, it was a pretty huge attack, and a lot of data was released. And finally, because we did not get enough cyber attacks this year, really, threat actors just were not having enough fun, Log4j comes out. Really, attackers cooked up something truly, truly special this year with Log4j. Because really, what better way to troll the InfoSec community than using a Minecraft exploit to upend the internet? Okay. It's not necessarily just a Minecraft exploit. It's a Log4j exploit, but let's talk about it. Basically, it was a single line of code that attackers could input into an input field that would route the host server to a server of their choosing. That would allow them unauthenticated remote code execution. So literally as bad as you could imagine. And we've talked about all of that in this playlist up here, so you can check that out anytime you want. We're not going to dive too much further into this because we've talked about it ad nauseum to this. Now, as of the time of this recording, which is December of 2020, this still isn't even a month old, so there's plenty of time for things to hit the fan effectively on this one. But it has already been considered one of the largest vulnerabilities that we've seen so far of this entire decade. Definitely worth noting, although, to our knowledge, no companies have come forth and admitted that they've been breached. So as far as cyber attacks goes, why is this included in this video? Because this vulnerability is huge, and I consider it to really just be a ticking time bomb and not necessarily a, just a one-off thing. Now, if you're watching this video and you're thinking, dang, I wish I could have watched a video on this specific attack, don't fret. On top is a playlist of all these events. You can check everything out there. And if you're interested in hearing about a cyber attack that took down a nuclear facility, you should check that bottom video out. I wear a robe, and it's not weird. It's weird. And as always, like this video if it was helpful, and subscribe for more content, because then I will eat a ghost pepper one day. You'll see. Have a good one. Bye.